Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I am Donny Mayhem, and this video is going to be going through the hotfix patch that is coming out today, the 27th of September 2019. And I know yesterday we had the performance patch. Hopefully a lot of you have seen improvements from that, but today they are rolling out hotfixes and weapon adjustments, things like that. So let's go through with it first. They say that this week's Borderlands 3 hotfixes, which will be live by or before 3 PM today, that would be American time, target weapon and balances and enemy balances, player characters, and adjusting chances of specific unique drops. Billions of guns were fired, and after collecting some data, we wanted to balance some weapon types and weapon manufacturers. These adjustments are intended to even the playing field and increase build diversity for all Vault Hunters. Speaking of build diversity, Zane has received a gadget upgrade, and we're excited to see players create more unique builds with him. Many crew challenge enemies have specific loot drops, but we have received reports that some were not dropping them. We have made some modifications so they now have an increased chance of dropping their unique gear, in addition to any other gear that they may drop. So, first topic at hand, we have the weapon hotfixes. So, sniper rifles. Snipers deal high damage but felt a little cumbersome to use in certain scenarios. This change will increase their overall damage and usability in more combat engagements. Critical damage increased by 20%, fire rate by 15%, time to aim down sights has been reduced by 15%, and time to equip reduced by 20%. Onto pistols. Jacobs and Torg pistols were outperforming other manufacturers, dealing damage to groups of enemies at a higher rate than other pistols. This change keeps their identity intact but reduces overall group control. TDO, DAL and COV pistols have manufacturer penalties that affected their overall damage. Increasing their overall damage will overcome some of the penalties while retaining their unique gameplay style and feel. So, they are increasing damage on all TDO pistols by 15%, increased damage on DAL pistols by 15%, and also Children of the Vault pistols by 20%. Reduced damage on Jacobs pistols by 15% and Torg pistols by 10%. Oh, a shame, I love my Jacobs pistols as well. Right, moving on. Malawan manufacturer. The Malawan weapons had reduced overall damage because they applied elemental damage over times at a rate and damage greatly above other manufacturers. This effect was toned down before launch, but the overall damage was not sufficiently adjusted to compensate for the reduction of elemental DOTs. We're adding back some of the overall damage and making the weapons feel faster, so elemental builds can really take advantage of Malawan weaponry. That's good to hear, because I think Malawan are pretty behind, to be honest. All Malawan weapon damage increased by 25%. All Malawan weapon fire rate increased by 20%. Okay, moving on. Atlas. Atlas weapons relied on a game loop that we felt gave players a great advantage when used correctly. Turns out the loop is not used if the damage doesn't compensate for the time to set it up. So now, damage on Atlas weapons should facilitate players using them in general, on top of feeling badass when they take advantage of Atlas technology. All Atlas weapon damage is now increased by 25%. That's quite big, and I think that'll make a difference, actually. So some other adjustments they've made. Jacob's assault rifle change was to differentiate the assault rifle from the pistol as more of a mid to long range powerhouse, and since the assault rifles have low mag sizes compared to other assault rifles, they're getting a slight increase to overall damage to compensate. While DAL SMGs had their fire rates adjusted down before launch, but their damage was never sufficiently increased, so they should feel more appropriate compared to other SMGs, and the Vladov heavy weapon damage has been increased to share in the full heavy weapon treatment. So the stats are: Jacob's assault rifle damage has been increased by 20%, the DAL SMG damage increased by 10%, Vladov heavy weapon damage increased by 25%, and E-Tech TDO shotgun damage increased by 50%. That's a big number, very big number. Now, legendary modifications. We're going to be making a larger, comprehensive legendary gear pass, but we have included the following changes. King's and Queen's Call were modified to lower the fire rate. The weapon has a limited burst shot count, so overall, feel of the gun isn't dramatically affected. The King's and Queen's Call fire rate is going to be reduced by 50%. The Firestorm and Storm base charge times were reduced to 1 second, down from 2. Now then, everybody's favourite Grave Ward. Grave Ward's beam attacks did not properly scale based on level, so at higher levels the 2 beam attacks hardly phased players. Players will find his attacks to be much more lethal now. In addition, Grave Ward is a very large enemy and is too easily susceptible to elemental damage, unlike the other large bosses. Elemental damage on Grave Ward is now greatly reduced, but to compensate, his overall health was also reduced. The attacks of Grave Ward now scale based on level. He's reduced overall health by 20%, increased his resistances to elemental damage. The elemental chance resistance increased to 70%, and resistances of elementals increased by 30%. The damage over time duration taken has also been reduced. So on to miscellaneous changes now. Hollow Point Guardian rank has been temporarily disabled. We plan on addressing this in future in a further patch. Vault Hunters should no longer scream when affected by damage over time while shields are active. Vending machines will now be restocked with the higher quality items of the day. Adjusted a visual concern on Malawan shotguns with cryo element. Legendary loot drops have been balanced throughout the game. Crew challenge enemies will drop their intended specific loot, and some enemies like Troy and Rampager will be a bit more stingy and no longer drop legendaries every single kill. So they have also made adjustments to Vault Hunters. Sorry, no, this is quite long, if you can just stay with me. Zane's gadgets were great at providing additional utility, but lacked impact as players leveled up. So what they've done is Digi-clone damage increased by 30%, drone damage increased by 50%, cryo bullets damage penalty removed, drone rocket damage increased by 50%, and the almighty ordnance rockets damage increased by 75%. Amara, her guardian angel health restoration reduced from 100% to 50%, glamour damage penalty reduced from 30% to 10%. And lastly, we have flak. Gorillas in the Mist duration reduced from 8 seconds to 6 seconds, and Gorillas in the Mist critical damage bonus reduced from 50% to 25%. So, I know it was long-winded, but they are the hotfix patch that you can expect to have updated today. Hope you stayed with me through that. I know it was quite long. I'll leave a link in the description so you can read the hotfix notes yourself. So yeah, it's great to see that they're working on it on a daily and weekly basis. It's always good to see. I'm hoping that they sort out the inventory. You know, when you go in your backpack, I think it's a bit slow and a bit laggy. But we'll see. Well, I've been Donny Mayhem. If this was helpful, please drop me a like and a subscribe. I'll be back for more Borderlands content. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you next time.
For a brawl.